Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat with Dr. Foojan.
Years ago, I was, a 15-year-old girl with an eating disorder. And so movement had this toggle effect because in some ways, positively, it was helping me with my mental health and deal with my anxiety. But on the other side of the spectrum, it was also causing me to align with these sociocultural narratives around athletic bodies and thin bodies um, and I got a lot of praise for aligning with that cultural type, right? And so it ultimately ended in mental illness for me. So there we go. Movement was helping me, but it also caused me to put myself in environments that were really harming for me. And so that's where the perfectionistic really came up because I'm a very goal-oriented person, which is really moralized as a positive thing in our environment. But it has lots of negatives associations with it too. If you're getting your self-worth from your goal orientation, or if you need to be better than others in your goal orientation rather than just better for yourself, there's lots of negatives. If you're not aware of them, they can be real pitfalls. You're moving towards this goal because you think that life is better on the other side, but it actually could be worse if your motives, if your self-worth, if your self-esteem is not supported for the pursuit of that goal. So that's also, if you think of an elite level athlete, if you're pursuing a goal and you don't have self-worth and self-esteem and positive motivation and positive self-talk that's genuine, then you could put yourself in real harm. And that certainly happened for me.
Introducing a powerful new update from the Foojan app. Now with flexible subscription plans to fit your journey monthly, quarterly, or yearly. Our new AI-driven onboarding customizes your path to feeling better, faster, and enjoy a refreshed experience with stunning 3D interactive videos. Update now. Empower your inner voice with Foojan. Download today.
Welcome to The Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Foojan Zain. I'm a psychotherapist. I'm an author and the founder of the International Awareness Integration Institute. Today, I will be talking with Olivia Chadwick. She's a kinesiologist. She's a mental performance coach and certified exercise physiologist. She's a podcaster and a speaker and founder of Movement Medicine, a first of its kind coaching practice consisting of an integrated team of world-class leaders in the application of exercise science. And as the host of the She Knew Better podcast, she aims to showcase guests that offer expert and loving advice to help us overcome life's challenges, deal with mistakes and setbacks, and level up. So today we're going to be actually talking about her book, 17 Runs. She co-authored this book with a mentor, with someone who she was going to be his coach, and then they became kind of have this amazing mentorship relationship with each other. And we talked a lot about how you can look at performance, you can look at your physical movement, you can look at where you want to get, but you also, beside all of that, in order to have the result that you want, you really got to look at your internal process and your internal growth. And she shared about her journey of how that growth has meant for her, the meaningful relationships that she's created with herself, with her body, with her growth, with her clients, with people around her, and how much of togetherness, being together, means so much for our success, for our inner peace, or whether we're in a vulnerable place that we need each other and want to be with together, or we're at our height of our success. So I really enjoyed our conversation, and I'm positive you will too. Now be sure to subscribe to this podcast, my YouTube channel, and connect with me through my website, foojanzain.com, or any of the social media platforms, and share your thoughts with me. I love to hear from you. Always. If you have questions, if there are ideas, anything that you want to share with me, I love to hear from you. So go ahead and don't be shy. Just connect with me. Without further ado, here's Olivia Chadwick.
Listen up if you want to promote your personal growth and self-awareness. I found the Foojan app last month and I have been absolutely loving it. I personally have never learned guided meditation, but thanks to this app, I now have learned incredible tools for my own stress relief and emotional self-awareness. Not to mention, there are self-evaluation tools and professional coaching available to utilize however your journey to self-discovery takes you. Join Foojan today and redefine your life one step at a time.
Intentional Parenting, a practical guide to awareness integration theory, written by Dr. Jafari, Dr. Foojan Zain, and Dr. Manoukian, 3 experts in human development, is your step-by-step guide to raising a healthy child prepared for a culturally integrated world. You're supported in parenting infants to adolescents using the latest evidence-based scientific research on parenting. Order your copy on Amazon now.
Well, I'm excited to have you on the show, everyone. Olivia Chadwick, welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zain. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, wonderful. Where are you actually? Where are you located?
I am in central Canada, so in a province called Saskatchewan, a prairie province.
Do you have snow yet?
You know what? It's a gorgeous day out today, which is currently melting the snow, which we've already had. It's been an unusual fall.
Oh, okay. All right. We don't have from California. We don't have snow where I am in Southern California. So I always get excited about where's the snowing right now. And it's the excitement.
It is beautiful when it first arrives. It just stays too long.
So we want to talk about your book, 17 Runs. So you are an expert in movement, physiology of movement. First of all, what got you interested in that? What in your life got you interested in wanting to be in the world of physiology?
Great question. I think there's always multiple narratives that are informing somebody's life. And so there's that, the story that you tell everyone, and then there's the other narratives that also coexisted that you either are aware of or not aware of. So one area was that I had been a really active kid, that I engaged in sports. I was an equestrian. But in my late teens, I suffered quite a few losses and I took up running to sort of help me cope with some grief and trauma, actually. And so, of course, I didn't know that at the time, but movement was really an outlet for me to cope in life. And so, it became something that I used to deal with, I think, probably anxiety that I was dealing with at that age, certainly cope with grief. And then just because I was the sort of person, I had natural personality characteristics like probably some perfectionism. I say probably, definitely some perfectionism and a natural disciplined routine type person. It was something that I took, to a performance standard because that's the way I'm wired. And so I was always trying to be better as a runner and to perform better. But it was all very for me only. I didn't have sort of a competition I went to, or my parents didn't put me in sports or anything like that within running. It's something that I just pursued personally. I really think it was about caring for my mental health. And so later in life, when I was in a university environment, sort of at a bit of a crossroads as to what I was going to do, I just naturally started taking kinesiology courses because I was just still interested in learning, even though I had no idea what I was going to do with that. I went to university trying to put myself in a path of a professional career in some way, but not quite figuring that out. I was taking kinesiology on the side just to learn more about the body and, how to perform better and how to move better. And then it ended up being that I was so far along taking those courses that it made the most sense for me just to pursue that as my undergraduate degree.
Beautiful. So you've created the movement medicine and first of its kind coaching that you really look at the mental performance plus the physical performance. I know myself, I've never been into exercising. I actually hate exercising, and I've never been into sports. So this world has been so far away from me. And I think I've always been envious of people who naturally it comes to them. But I know that as I've aged, and I've been lucky enough that I've been healthy, I've been lucky enough that even if I didn't do a lot of exercises or were not in the sports, then my body kind of pulled through. But that has only its time, because when you get older, that's your body just doesn't do that. So it was more like, okay, I actually have to get to know my body. And this process of getting to know my body and really respecting it. Part of I know what I never liked was pain. So the minute my body went through some movement that it created pain, my instinct was to stop. It's pain, stop. And then the training with a lot of types of trainers were no, there's a difference between pain. Because if you're moving forward with something that, it is painful, sometimes you got to go beyond the threshold. I knew that I had to have a whole different paradigm when it came to me connecting with my body, listening to the body, listening to the movement that it needed, and learning the skills in how to be with that. I'm still a very novice in that. So I'm so interested in hearing from you, because like you're saying, you're a natural runner. Like for me, running had to do with pain in my stomach and my feet. And it was like, no, stop. That's not you. So share with me and our audience, how can you in your coaching, how do you work with people to listen to their body and the movement that it requires, and how to gain that skill?
That's a great question. I love that you are sort of showing the other side of the coin. Some of us are naturally wired to pursue movement, and not to sound woo-woo, but it's almost like the soul decides that you're going to go on that journey of pursuing excellence in that particular vehicle and be confronted with all the challenges and setbacks. And that's the journey that you're going to go on. And for me, in one area of my work, when I work with athletes, that's mental performance work, right? That's how do we sharpen the saw to be mentally able to overcome failures and setbacks and self-doubt and lack of confidence when you're pursuing performance. But yes, that mental component, that psychological component, which for me, later on when I went back to do my master's in exercise science, it was from that lens, because I realized that it really didn't matter how good my skills were in helping people move their bodies and following the protocols of whether it was strength training or whether it was cardiovascular training. If I couldn't really help people understand what was going on in their bodies, their motivations to exercise, overcoming the mental barriers, then I couldn't really serve them fully. And of course, they were coming from a perspective that was different from mine. Like this was a world that I ate, sleep, and breathed in, and I really had to learn the other person's experience that didn't have that, natural desire. That natural desire, it was something that they chose to do because it was a form of self-care for them. And so honestly, that became a much more fulfilling way of actually offering exercise, to really understand from the other person's perspective and figure out, well, what tools resources and learnings can I get to help people face those barriers? And I think, like you said, I think people, when they're having those experiences, the narrative, like it's painful, or I find this really hard, or my body doesn't move in that way, because what's a lot out there in the world when it comes to sport and movement is fit bodies, bodies that move well, bodies that don't find it hard, bodies that appear to enjoy it. When people have an alternate experience to that, they assume that either something is wrong or that they are wrong in some way. And so a lot of my work is about including all of our internal experiences, naming these internal experiences and saying this is exactly what it's like. Some people are afraid to move. Some people feel anxiety when they feel their heart rate go up, because that actually feels a lot like anxiety in the body. It can also be really challenging as an adult to learn a new skill. And so being able to have that beginner's perspective of finding things hard again, that's really hard for us when we are really good in lots of ways at other things that we spent decades of becoming really good in. When we have to learn something new, that's really difficult. So obviously I could go on. This is something that I'm really passionate about, and I could name lots of other different alternate experiences to yours, but I just want to validate how common the one that you had is.
Yeah, when you said that, I realized that it was interesting, because I would go through and listen to my trainers and move forward. But exactly what you said, the minute my heart started pounding and I would start in a sweat, my body would go into a panic and it would shut down. Like I would faint. I remember doing
Wow.
Pilates, and then beyond Pilates, like my trainer would take me, push me, push me, push me, and I would say, "Okay, I'm going to trust you, and I'm going to move." And then my muscles would go absolutely into a fatigue, and she would look at me like, "Okay, what just happened?" I'm like, "My body just told you stop. No way, we're not doing this anymore. This isn't even about my brain. My body says this is do or die. I'm stopping here." And it was interesting because we had to actually take our hour 1 hour training into a half an hour so that my body would, it was more like respecting me and my body in order to do that. So that's where I was learning. I have to listen to my body. And I can sense that what you're saying also is when you, now this is just for me to do exercise in a gym. Now you're working with athletes and performance where this piece is like we're way beyond that. But I'm assuming that this also gets to that piece where either their mind or their body will stop them at their greatest performance at one point. And there's a time where they actually have to stop and they listen to what's going on, whether it's the thought process, whether it's a feeling that's coming up, whether it's a belief that's coming up, or whether their body is saying something to them that they need to be able to shift that in order to move to the next level of their performance.
I mean, I think you've named it beautifully. I mean, ultimately, we're always in growth environments. We're always going to the point where our natural coping mechanisms are confronted with their inability to function any further. And that is where the growth happens, and whether you're a beginner, and I do work with tons of beginners. I work, very much across the spectrum. But honestly, beginners are my favorites because there's so much more of a wealth of opportunity for improvements in health and improvements of how people believe in themselves and how they identify with movement and sport that I feel like there's so much gold that can be offered to that person. Because most of the time a beginner isn't engaging because usually it's because they inherently believe something about them that isn't capable of pursuing sport or movement in some way. And so helping that person realize that that's just a belief that they have. And if they're willing to take the small steps to see, hey, body, I'm going to ask this of you. Are you okay with that? Can you do this? And eventually they're able to do it. They're like, oh, well, if I can go from A to B, then surely it's no different to go from B to C. And that can really start to, snowball as confidence increases. But to go back to what you were saying, yes, that experience of the beginner of saying like, if what took me to get from there to here is the same that it takes from here to there, but I might just need a new skill or a new resource, but I figured out I can learn that. It is no different than the elite athlete. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And what were some of the conversations that were there for you? Although this was like your soul had chosen this path that your body was choosing, but there is like, you shared about, a part of me that's a perfectionist. It's what was the perfectionist part of you doing with the rest of you as you were moving forward? Like what hurdles did you have to pass through in order to meet with the perfectionist part of you?
Oh God. Okay. Well, I mean, we're talking about like 30 years of evolution of that, really.
Well, I'm glad you
Um,
say that because sometimes people have the idea like, where's the magical wand? And you're like, hello, this might take 30 years, but it's true because every moment we're moving forward. And that's where the whole point of the, personal growth internally or physical growth and manifestation gets created. So I'm glad you said that. So it's not like, okay, we got this magical wand, you do it and that's it. But it is a process.
Yeah, I read something the other day and it really spoke to my heart. It was something along the lines of, and I will not quote this accurately, was as a woman professional, you're trying to become the person that 20 or 30-year-old version of you ago really needed. And I really relate to that, because 30 years ago, I was, a 15-year-old girl with an eating disorder. And so movement had this toggle effect because in some ways, positively, it was helping me with my mental health and deal with my anxiety. But on the other side of the spectrum, it was also causing me to align with these sociocultural narratives around athletic bodies and thin bodies um, and I got a lot of praise for aligning with that cultural type, right? And so it ultimately ended in mental illness for me. So there we go. Movement was helping me, but it also caused me to put myself in environments that were really harming for me. And so that's where the perfectionistic really came up, because I'm a very goal-oriented person, which is really moralized as a positive thing in our environment. But it has lots of negatives associations with it too. If you're getting your self-worth from your goal orientation, or if you need to be better than others in your goal orientation rather than just better for yourself, there's lots of negatives. If you're not aware of them, they can be real pitfalls. You're moving towards this goal because you think that life is better on the other side, but it actually could be worse if your motives, if your self-worth, if your self-esteem is not supported for the pursuit of that goal. So that's also, if you think of an elite level athlete, if you're pursuing a goal and you don't have self-worth and self-esteem and positive motivation and positive self-talk, that's genuine, then you could put yourself in real harm. And that certainly happened for me in my teens. But also, this was the 90s, and there was not a lot of models for support or understanding of sociocultural lenses of the patriarchy, of objectification of women's bodies. There was no voice for any of that, and so I just felt broken. I just felt like I had an illness, I was broken, and then I felt I had a lot of shame around that for a lot of years. And so, my journey with movement was, I want to perform. I get a lot of positive affirmation of myself that my body is strong and capable in the movement space. But I also felt like there was a part of me that I had to get hidden within those spaces, because these were not things that people talked about in sports spaces at that time. And so my work today is to name all of these things. Like, athletes are very vulnerable when it comes to perfectionism, and the fitness industry promotes the behaviors that are very perfectionistic behaviors. And so, when I'm really passionate about being the person that my 20 to 30-year-old person needed, or 30 years ago, I should say, my 15-year-old needed, and well, let's say all the way through. But, it's naming a lot of these factors, naming a lot of our vulnerabilities, naming where shame can show up. This is all important work for me, even in the exercise science environment, which can be really confronting because people just want to pursue exercise and be happy. But that's not really my approach.
Well, it's beautiful that you're sharing about how the person can start looking at the emotion that shows up for them, or the thought process that shows up for them, which produces those kind of emotions. And then, like for me, when I hit pain in physical body, I go into rage. And I've always said that to myself. It's like my background is in a way that I've come from a background of abuse. So I had learned how to tolerate emotional pain. I got. Like, I knew how to contain emotional pain. Physical pain, I would just get enraged with that physical pain. And it was almost like I could, with the emotional pain, I couldn't be angry. I would just go into powerlessness. And then with the physical pain, it would allow me to have that rage. And you can see a lot of people where they get rageful, they have the physical body, like they can punch, they can bite, they can run. You can definitely run when you're getting angry.
Yeah, it has energy.
It has a lot of energy. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that you are sharing in how we could bring these two and look at the simultaneous space of how we feel and how that feeling creates some movement in our body, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
and then can you share also that after naming these, after becoming aware and naming these thoughts and feeling processes, obviously you have a goal, as a performer, you have a goal. How do you overcome or utilize, sometimes overcome these types of thoughts and emotions in order to go toward the goal that you have?
Oh, I mean, that's always pretty context specific and individual. My sort of philosophical background is rooted in mindful self-compassion. That's the tools and areas that were most helpful for me in self-awareness raising, in being able to meet myself in a kind and loving way. That's what I really needed. Sort of naming experiences, having conversations of naming experiences like shame and building literacy around emotions is all key to the process. But I think at the root of it, where this all started was relational healing. So I believe we heal in relationships. So it can be helpful to read a book because you can potentially identify an emotion from a memory in the past. But I don't really feel that it gets processed until you process it in relationship. So I think that's the primary work, is creating a safe and open space where people can come and meet with me, yes, for exercise, but really as their whole self, and feel safe enough to name, this is what I'm struggling with in my body, this is what I'm struggling in my life, this is where I want to go, but I'm not sure if I can get there. This is what I feel is holding me back. We can have those authentic conversations. And that in and of itself is the path forward, right? Is naming what's in the way. What's in the way is the way.
Yes. Everyone, get this book, 17 Runs. The Unbeaten Path to Unlock Life's True Potential by Olivia Chadwick and your co-author, Garnet Morris. So why 17 runs?
So Garnet, my co-author, Garnet Morris, was a client of mine. He's 30 years my senior, and he approached me to write this book, actually. So it was his initial provocation that we would do this together. When we first started working together 13 years ago, Garnet had come to me as in this athlete client, client coach relationship or athlete coach relationship. And he had already been on a big health journey, but he was at a point where he was really pursuing physical performance. And at the time, he was running about like a 5K distance, and he wanted to make a more audacious goal. And so we made this plan to run the 100-mile Kananaskis relay. So a group of 10 people out in the mountains running legs of a relay for 100 miles. We had about a year-long training program together. And in that period of time, we maneuvered from me being the coach and delivering him his training program to becoming friends and having really deep and meaningful conversations. And ultimately, because I was going through a lot in my life that really mirrored in so many ways a lot of traumas and challenges that Garnet had gone through, he became my mentor. And so this book is a narrative. It chronicles this period of time of growth for me and of wisdom sharing from Garnet. And it does so in a way that offers these principles that Garnet had used in his own life to move from bankruptcy at the age of 40 to a multimillionaire by the time he was 60. He looked back and looked at these inner changes that had to happen within him to allow that massive transformation to occur for him. And ironically, the things that he shares are the same as mental performance principles. It's so interesting that he was coming to me just having learned it in life, like just had figured it out. And yet he was reflecting back to me all these things that I'd taken in academic training and also helped athletes with. And so the book shares that. So the idea being the run is a metaphor for us doing hard things in life. We go out on the runs, we say we're going to do something, and then we have to show up and actually do it, and it's going to be really hard. We did actually go out on runs. And it's 17 runs because our original motivation was to write the book for my son, who we handed it to at the age of 17, or that was the goal. He ended up being 18. It's book world, publishing world is a little slower than our brains predict. This idea being that, if we could have given ourselves these gifts of this wisdom at that age, how helpful that would have been. And also how difficult it is to be 17 ever. Doesn't seem to matter what decade or era. 17 is pretty hard. It's that moment in life where you're trying to figure out who you are. And so this book, I feel, really speaks to people who are feeling at a crossroads in life, feeling stuck, wondering who they are and probably wanting to become a different version of themselves in a positive way. And this book is a guide for that process.
It's interesting what you said, which is so true, that we learn skills in different arenas and different life areas. And then we don't know yet how to transfer this wisdom or the skill that we've learned in one area to the other until we notice, like what you said, which is your co-author was had learned so much on so many levels in different areas of his life. And then when it came to his physical performance, he was holding back and not realizing that he could use the same concepts. And how did because you said I also chose him in a sense on a mental or emotional mentorship or that level. What did his experience that he gained from his life brought to you for your life?
Yeah, that's a, Garnet and I, when you go out on runs, and I don't know if you've had this experience, but I hope you do, with other people, it's this really magical space because after about 15 minutes, you're starting to produce a lot of neurochemicals that they're mind-altering drugs, let's face it. And so you have this unusual experience of being with another human who's having a similar experience to you. And it's very mind opening, like the things that you figure are the most unlovable parts about yourself, you can say them out loud because you don't feel like they're insurmountable in that moment because you're in a really positive state. And so you have this experience of just narrating your life with people, and you end up saying things that you don't often have opportunities to share because you're just not in the right headspace or you're not having that reciprocal experience. You're not showing up for each other for this 1 hour time, like a couple of times per week. So there's so much about that environment that's just set up for you to have these really vulnerable conversations. And so Garnet and I would share from this really heart-centered place. He might be 30 years older than me. He might be a white male, but he's a very emotional being, as I'm sure all persons of his demographic actually are. But he's really able to go there in a really vulnerable way. And it turned out that we had had really similar childhood experiences. Like Garnet has said before, and I think he's right about this, that it's like if you could reincarnate somebody 30 years later, but in your lifetime, that would be me being reincarnated, Garnet being reincarnated as me, which is kind of a funny thing to say. But it's true because we've had really similar stories. And so when you share that and you know that person's pain and you know that person's experience, there's a bond there that gets created that was really special.
Yes. And based on your philosophy and his and the experiences that you guys had, it seems like you've brought some of these points in the book that shares with others and how to have an outlook, how to have a mindset, right? Is this that's what you're bringing to others? So if there is one or two things that you wanted to share with the audience that gives away some of this wisdom, the jewel, what would it be?
I think the book is all about personal growth and it's about inner growth, but not thinking that that path is going to be easy. We talk in the book about discomfort, about getting off the mat, about dealing with failures. And so much of growth is about that. And that's really where all your success is going to come from. And some of the best things that you'll do and accomplish will be because you've gone through these dark roads. I just want to, I guess, validate and normalize that that's everyone's process. If you think anyone else is not going through a hard time right now, then you've lost perspective because they absolutely are. But, I was lucky that I found somebody who was willing to walk that path with me. Garnet talked through that path with me. He showed up for me when I was going through difficult things. That social connection piece that we don't explore enough when it comes to health and well-being and personal growth, whether that's through mentorship or coaching or deep friendship. And I think you should probably have all of the above if you really have a desire to grow.
Yeah, and what you also shared, which is when you're running with someone or when you are in a, let's say, most vulnerable place with someone, because I think running or any of these exercises kind of symbolizes also that you have vulnerability side by side by strength and power. So, and that's what's inside of us also, right? So we have our vulnerable side and we have our strength. And when you're looking at running in a marathon, you have all of those moments that I can't do this anymore. My body won't do it. Like, no way. And then there's a part of you that pulls you through. Your body does make it. Every muscle, every bone, every cell in your body, roots for you to go to the intention of the next level. And you can experience these two sides, simultaneously. The utmost level of vulnerability where you're like, you look bad and you look like, oh, I can't do anything. And then yet every part of your body is moving and holding you and taking you. And even when their body says no, there's another thought that shows up and says, just a little bit more, because you're going to go, to the last piece, just a little bit more. And then your body accommodates it and moves toward it. And this is such a symbolization of, and kind of like the whole point is this, whether we're looking internally, feeling wise, mentally, and then the manifestation of it physically, which shows up outside.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, yes, I think the human spirit is wired to grow, and that means we have to do hard things, and that means we have to face challenges, and this requires a lot of vulnerability and a lot of tenacity and perseverance, but I do not believe that we are wired to do any of that alone.
Yes.
So if you're thinking that you're doing it alone, stop doing it alone. If you feel alone, stop being alone.
Yeah.
Reach out for help, reach out for support, hire the right person, get in the right community, because you're capable of it, but probably not on your own.
It's interesting, Olivia, as we've started talking, the sun is coming and creeping all over, and started from a part of you. Then now it's like coming up on you, holding part of your face. And then I think you're going to be glowing in light as we're coming.
I wasn't paying attention at all. I was staring at you the whole time, so I was not paying attention. I hope that's too narrow.
Light is coming. You're glowing in light. So is there anything we haven't said that you want people to know?
I really think that you've done such a beautiful job of questioning. I do genuinely feel like that reaching out for help when you need it is ultimately the epitome of the message of the book and of growth.
The togetherness and how we could be together while we go through all of it, whether it's our vulnerabilities or our greatness, because I think there's also the part that we want to share our greatness with others. So
absolutely,
all of it is something that we want to, have together in a sense. Where could people find you?
In my role as a coach, they can find me on movement-medicine.com. That's my website, or personally, Olivia J. Chadwick on Instagram. If it's more in alignment with the book, that's Life Lessons on the Run, where we share more wisdom between Garnet and I, and conversations on Instagram as well.
Beautiful. So everyone, get this book, 17 Runs, The Unbeaten Path to Unlock Life's True Potential by Garnet Morris and our own Olivia Chadwick. Well, it was a joy to have you on the show. Thank you so much for coming. And I know we had a time difference because in US we changed the time, and you didn't have that in Canada. So it was great to be able to match and connect together.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Dr. Zane. Lovely to meet you.
Of course. And for all of you who are out there, create an amazing life for yourself and everyone around you. And until next week, bye-bye.
Are you a psychotherapist looking to enhance your practice? The Awareness Integration Therapy developed by Dr. Foojan Zane is a comprehensive guide to the principle and techniques of this powerful therapeutic approach. Join the growing community who have elevated their practice and expanded their skills by embracing awareness integration therapy and witnessing its life-changing impact. Order your copy on Amazon now.